Hey there, and welcome to Crazy Pepper, the channel where drama sizzles and revenge burns hotter than ever. If you love jaw dropping twists, bold characters, and stories that keep you guessing till the end, you're in the right place. Subscribe and dive into gripping tales of betrayal, karma, and ultimate payback. Get ready for unforgettable moments and satisfying endings, only on Crazy Pepper. Hit that bell and let the drama begin. The first thing that hit me wasn't the July heat shimmering off the asphalt at Fort Braxton. It was my 12-year-old son, Danny, grabbing my arm with white knuckles and whispering, "Dad, that's not Mom." I squinted across the parade ground where soldiers were reuniting with families. There she was, my wife Lisa, walking toward us in full dress uniform, her blonde hair pulled back in regulation style. Same height, same build, same confident stride that had attracted me 15 years ago when we were both young and stupid enough to believe in forever. But Danny was right. Something was wrong. "What do you mean, kiddo?" I kept my voice steady, but my gut was already churning. After 20 years as a cop in this god-forsaken New England mill town, I'd learned to trust that feeling. "Look at her face, Dad. Really look." I did, and that's when I saw it. The thin scar running from her left temple to her jawline. A scar my wife Lisa had never had. "Jesus Christ," I muttered, then caught myself. "Sorry, Danny." The woman who looked exactly like my wife was now 10 feet away, smiling that perfect Lisa smile. But it wasn't Lisa. It was her identical twin sister, Emma. Emma, who'd been in a car accident 8 years ago. Emma, who Lisa claimed to hate. Emma, who was supposed to be living in California, far away from our quiet life in Millbrook. "Jack," she called out, arms spread wide. "Surprise!" I stood frozen as she embraced me. Her perfume all wrong, too sweet, too desperate. Lisa wore something clean and simple. This was trying too hard. "Where's my wife?" I asked quietly, not returning the hug. Emma pulled back, her blue eyes, Lisa's eyes, sparkling with something that might have been amusement or malice. "Lisa had to extend her deployment, last-minute intelligence work. She asked me to come and surprise you and Danny instead." Bullcrap. The word came out flat and hard. Danny stepped closer to me. Smart kid sensing the tension crackling between the adults. Emma's smile flickered. "Jack, you seem upset. Maybe we should talk privately. Maybe you should tell me where my wife really is." Around us, other families were having their happy reunions. Kids running into their parents' arms, wives crying with joy, grandparents taking pictures. We were the dark spot in all that Norman Rockwell perfection. "Lisa is fine," Emma said, her voice dropping to match mine. "She's dealing with some things, personal things. She didn't want to worry you." "What kind of things?" "The kind that are none of your damn business, Jack." There it was, the real Emma coming through. Lisa would never speak to me like that. Not in front of Danny, not anywhere. "Come on, Danny," I said, putting my hand on my son's shoulder. "We're going home." "But Dad, now." As we walked away, I heard Emma call after us. "She'll be in touch when she's ready, Jack. Don't do anything stupid." I didn't turn around, but I filed that threat away for later consideration. In my experience, people who warned you not to do anything stupid were usually the ones planning something stupid themselves. The drive home to Millbrook took 40 minutes, long enough for Danny to ask the questions I was dreading. "Dad, why would Aunt Emma pretend to be Mom?" "I don't know yet, buddy." "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" I glanced in the rearview mirror. Danny had Lisa's eyes, too, but his were full of worry that no kid should have to carry. "I don't know that either. But whatever's going on, we'll figure it out together, okay?" He nodded, but I could see he wasn't convinced. Smart kid, too smart for his own good sometimes. Our house sat on Maple Street, a 1950s colonial that Lisa and I had been slowly renovating for the past 5 years. The mortgage was eliminating us, but it was home. Or it had been until today. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, staring at the front door. Everything looked normal. The flower boxes Lisa had insisted on, the American flag hanging from the porch, the basketball hoop I'd installed for Danny last Christmas. But normal was a luxury I'd apparently lost somewhere between this morning and now. "Go inside and start your homework," I told Danny. "I need to make some phone calls." "Are you going to call Mom?" "I'm going to try." But first, I called my old partner from the police force, Derek "Red" McAllister. Red had retired 2 years ago and started his own private investigation business. If anyone could help me figure out what the hell was happening, it was him. Jack, my boy! Red's gravelly voice boomed through the phone. How's civilian life treating you? Like a kick in the teeth. Red, I need a favor. Name it. I told him about the scene at the base, about Emma pretending to be Lisa, about the deployment that didn't make sense. Red listened without interrupting, which was one of the things that made him a good detective. So your wife's twin shows up instead of your wife, and nobody thinks to mention this little switcheroo ahead of time? Red summarized. That's about the size of it. And you haven't heard from Lisa directly in how long? I thought about it. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Her last email was short. Said she was busy with classified work. Emails can be faked, Jack. You know that. Yeah, I know that. What's your gut telling you? My gut was telling me that my marriage was over and I was the last one to know about it. My gut was telling me that Emma showing up was a distraction, a magic trick to keep me from looking too closely at what was really happening. My gut was telling me that I was about to discover things I didn't want to know. My gut's telling me I'm screwed, I said. Well, your gut's probably right, but let's get some facts before we start planning your funeral. I'll make some calls, see what I can find out about Lisa's deployment status. You got her unit information? I gave him what I had, then hung up and stared at my phone. I could call Lisa directly, but something told me that would tip my hand too early. If she was playing games, I wanted to know the rules first. Instead, I called our neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. She was 75, retired, and spent most of her time watching the neighborhood from her kitchen window. If anything unusual had been happening at my house, she'd know about it. Jack, dear, how did the homecoming go? She asked before I could even identify myself. Interesting. Mrs. Henderson, have you noticed anything unusual around our house lately? Anyone coming or going when I wasn't home? There was a pause. Well, now that you mention it, there was a man here yesterday, driving a black BMW. He parked in your driveway for about an hour, then left. Did you get a look at him? Tall, well-dressed. Looked like money, if you know what I mean. Not the sort we usually see on Maple Street. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. A man in a BMW. In my driveway. While I was at work at the hardware store, thinking my wife was overseas serving her country. I walked through the house, looking for signs of an intruder, but everything seemed normal. Too normal, maybe. Lisa's coffee mug was still in the sink from 3 weeks ago, exactly where I'd left it. Her mail was stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. Her clothes were still in the closet and her toiletries still in the bathroom. But when I checked our bedroom more carefully, I found what I was looking for. The jewelry box on her dresser was missing a pair of diamond earrings, the ones I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. The expensive ones she only wore for special occasions. I sat on the bed, holding the empty velvet box, and tried to make sense of it all. Lisa was supposedly overseas. Emma was pretending to be Lisa. A strange man was visiting my house, and my wife's favorite earrings were gone. The phone rang, making me jump. The caller ID showed Red's number. That was fast, I said. Jack, we got a problem. I called my contact at Fort Braxton. Your wife's unit shipped out 3 weeks ago, but she's not with them. What do you mean not with them? I mean, she's listed as on leave, personal leave, started a month ago. The room seemed to tilt sideways. A month ago? Gets better. I ran a credit check. Don't ask how. Someone's been using her credit cards. Hotels, restaurants, shopping. All local, Jack, all right here in the area. I closed my eyes, feeling the last pieces of my old life crumbling away. She never went overseas. Doesn't look like it. And Jack, those hotel charges, they're all at the Riverside Inn. The Riverside Inn. The most expensive hotel in the county. The kind of place that catered to wealthy tourists and business travelers. The kind of place a hardware store manager's salary couldn't afford. Red, I need you to do something for me. You got it. I need you to find out who's been paying for those hotel rooms. Because it sure as hell wasn't me. After Red hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my bedroom, trying to process what I'd learned. My wife had been lying to me for at least a month. She was somewhere in the area, living it up at expensive hotels, while I thought she was serving her country overseas. Her twin sister was playing dress-up, pretending to be her for reasons I couldn't fathom. And somewhere in all of this was a man with a BMW who felt comfortable enough to park in my driveway. I heard Danny's footsteps on the stairs and quickly composed myself. Whatever was happening between Lisa and me, I wouldn't let it destroy my son's world any more than it already had. Dad, Danny appeared in the doorway. I finished my homework. Can we order pizza? Sure, buddy. Whatever you want. As I watched him scroll through the pizza place's menu on his phone, I made a decision. I was going to find out what Lisa was up to, who she was with, and why Emma was covering for her. And when I had all the facts, I was going to make sure that everyone who'd been playing games with my life understood exactly what kind of man they'd been messing with. I'd spent 20 years as a cop in a town where everyone knew everyone else's business. I'd learned how to investigate, how to follow leads, and how to be patient. But I'd also learned that sometimes when people pushed you far enough, patience became a luxury you couldn't afford. Lisa was about to discover that her husband wasn't as stupid as she apparently thought he was. The next morning, I dropped Danny off at school and drove straight to Red's office above Murphy's Tavern on Main Street. The building was older than dirt, but Red's setup was surprisingly modern. Computers, surveillance equipment, and a coffee machine that actually worked. "You look like hell," Red said when I walked in. "Feel worse. What did you find?" Red handed me a manila folder thick with papers. "Your wife's been busy. Credit card statements going back 6 weeks. Hotels, restaurants, shopping sprees at places you and I couldn't afford if we saved for a year." I flipped through the papers, my anger building with each page. Charges at the Riverside Inn totaling over $3,000. Dinners at Romano's, the fanciest restaurant in the county, for $200 a pop. Shopping at boutiques I'd never heard of. Someone's been taking good care of her. It gets better. I had a friend at the bank run the payment history. Those hotel bills, they're being paid by Blackwater Security Solutions. I looked up. Never heard of them. Private military contractor. Big money, government contracts, the whole 9 yards. And guess who owns 40% of the company? I waited. Colin Reeve, age 38, divorced, lives in a penthouse downtown, drives a black BM. The pieces clicked into place. Son of a witch. I took the liberty of running a background check on Mr. Reeve. Interesting guy. Rich family, went to Harvard, never served in the military, but makes his money off people who do. Also has a reputation as a ladies' man. Red handed me another set of papers, photographs this time. Colin Reeve was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, handsome in that expensive way that comes from good genes and better dental work. The kind of smile that said he'd never been told no in his life. "Where did you get these?" I may have followed him around yesterday. Professional curiosity. The photos showed Colin leaving his penthouse. Colin at an expensive lunch. Colin shopping at stores that probably didn't have price tags because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. And in the last photo, Colin was with Lisa. They were walking out of Romano's together, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing at something. Lisa was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something that probably cost more than I made in a week. She looked happy, happier than I'd seen her in years. "When was this taken?" "Yesterday, about 2 hours after you met her sister at the base." I stared at the photo, memorizing every detail. The way Lisa leaned into Colin as they walked. The way he looked down at her like she was something precious. The way they moved together like they'd been doing this for a long time. "I want to know everything about this guy," I said. "Already on it. Colin Reeve, born into money, never had to work for anything in his life. His company gets fat government contracts, mostly overseas security work. He's been married twice, divorced twice, pays alimony to both ex-wives, no kids. What's his connection to Lisa? Still working on that, but I can tell you where they'll be tonight." I looked up from the photos. Romano's, 8 o'clock. They have a standing reservation every Tuesday. Every Tuesday. How long had this been going on? "Red, I need a favor. You want me to follow them. I want you to teach me how to follow them. This is personal now." Red leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Jack, you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes it's better not to know. I'm already down the road, Red. I just want to know where it leads." That evening, I told Danny I had to work late at the store. I hated lying to him, but I hated the idea of him knowing what his mother was doing even more on Mrs. Henderson agreed to keep an eye on him, and by 7:30, I was parked across the street from Romano's, in Red's surveillance van. "Remember," Red said, adjusting the camera with the telephoto lens, "we're just gathering information. No confrontations, no dramatic scenes. We're invisible." "Got it." At exactly 8 o'clock, Colin's BMW pulled up to the valet stand. I watched him get out, straighten his expensive suit, and walk around to open the passenger door. Lisa stepped out wearing another dress I'd never seen, this one black and elegant and probably worth more than our monthly mortgage payment. They looked like a couple from a magazine, rich, beautiful, confident. Everything I wasn't. Son of a witch thinks he's James Bond, I muttered. Focus, Jack. We're here to learn, not to judge. Red was right, but watching my wife of 15 years walk into an expensive restaurant on another man's arm was like swallowing broken glass. We waited 2 hours. Red took photos, made notes, and kept up a steady stream of commentary designed to keep me calm. It mostly worked. When they finally came out, Lisa was laughing at something Colin had said, her hand resting on his chest in a gesture that was unmistakably intimate. They stood by the valet stand for several minutes, talking quietly, and I could see her nodding at whatever he was saying. They're planning something, I said. Looks like it. Colin's car arrived, and he helped Lisa into the passenger seat with the kind of old-fashioned courtesy I'd stopped showing her years ago. They drove off into the night, and I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Follow them? Red asked. No. I've seen enough for tonight. But I hadn't seen enough. Not nearly enough. As Red drove me back to my car, I was already planning my next move. The following morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the Riverside Inn. It was the kind of place that screamed money. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and staff who looked like they'd been hired for their cheekbones. The desk clerk was a young woman with perfect teeth and a practiced smile. I'm looking for my wife, I told her, showing Lisa's photo. Lisa Slater. I believe she's been staying here. The smile flickered. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't give out information about our guests. I pulled out my wallet and placed a $100 bill on the counter. It was money I couldn't afford to lose, but I was past caring about money. I'm not looking to cause trouble. I just need to know if she's been here. The clerk looked around, then palmed the bill. Room 412, but she checked out this morning. Was she alone? Another pause. No, sir. She was with a gentleman. They've been coming and going for about 3 weeks. 3 weeks. While I was working 60-hour weeks at the hardware store, trying to keep up with the bills, Lisa had been playing house with her rich boyfriend. Did they say where they were going? I'm sorry, sir. That's all I can tell you. I thanked her and left, but I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to Colin Reeves' penthouse building downtown. It was one of those converted warehouse buildings that developers had turned into luxury condos for people with more money than sense. I parked across the street and waited. I didn't have a plan exactly. I just wanted to see them together with my own eyes, in daylight, without the protection of restaurant lighting and expensive wine. I didn't have to wait long. At 11 o'clock, Colin and Lisa emerged from the building, both dressed casually but expensively. Colin was wearing jeans that probably cost more than my car payment and a polo shirt that looked like it had been tailored. Lisa was in designer clothes I'd never seen before, her hair styled in a way that made her look like a different person. They were holding hands. I sat in my car, watching my wife hold hands with another man, and felt something break inside me. Not my heart, that had been cracking for months. Something deeper, something that had to do with trust and respect, and the promises we'd made to each other 15 years ago. They got into Colin's BMW and drove away, and I followed at a distance, using the surveillance techniques Red had taught me. They went to an art gallery, then to a bookstore, then to a cafe where they sat outside and talked like they were the only two people in the world. I watched them for 3 hours, taking mental notes, building a case. They touched constantly, her hand on his arm, his fingers brushing her hair, the kind of casual closeness that comes from spending a lot of time together. They had inside jokes that made them laugh. They shared food off each other's plates. They looked happy. Genuinely, completely happy in a way that Lisa and I hadn't been in years. That night, after Danny went to bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and wrote down everything I knew. Lisa had been lying to me for at least a month, possibly longer. She was having an affair with Colin Reeve, a rich contractor who could give her everything I couldn't. Her sister Emma was helping cover for her, though I still didn't understand why. They were planning something. I'd seen them talking seriously outside Romano's. Lisa had moved out of the hotel, which meant she was either coming home or moving in with Colin. I stared at the list, trying to figure out my next move. I could confront Lisa directly, but that would give her a chance to lie her way out of it or disappear entirely. I could hire a divorce lawyer, but that would take time and money I didn't have. Or I could wait and see what they were planning. Let them make the first move and be ready for it. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Jack, it's Emma. I sat up straighter. What do you want? We need to talk. Tomorrow, noon, at the diner on Route 9. Come alone. Why would I? Because if you don't, you're going to lose your son. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, Emma's words echoing in my head. "You're going to lose your son." What the hell did that mean? I thought about calling Red, but decided against it. This was something I needed to handle myself. Tomorrow, I'd find out what Lisa and her sister were really planning, and then I'd decide what I was going to do about it. The Route 9 diner was the kind of place that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead and pie that could make you forget your troubles for at least 5 minutes. I arrived early and took a booth in the back where I could watch the door in the parking lot. Emma showed up exactly at noon, sliding into the booth across from me like we were old friends meeting for lunch. Up close, the resemblance to Lisa was unsettling. Same blue eyes, same blonde hair, same bone structure. But the scar running down the left side of her face told a different story, and there was something harder in her expression than I'd ever seen in Lisa's. "You look like hell, Jack." "So everyone keeps telling me. What's this about, Emma?" She ordered coffee from the waitress, taking her time, studying me like I was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "Lisa's planning to divorce you. I figured that out on my own. She's also planning to take Danny." I felt my hands clench into fists under the table, over my dead body. "That's exactly what I'm trying to prevent." Emma leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Jack, you don't understand what you're dealing with. Colin Reeve isn't just some rich guy having a midlife crisis. He's connected. He has lawyers, judges, politicians in his pocket. If Lisa wants to disappear with Danny, he can make it happen." "Why are you telling me this? I thought you and Lisa were working together." Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Lisa thinks I'm helping her because I owe her something, because she took care of me after my accident." She touched the scar on her face. "But Lisa's never taken care of anyone but herself. So why help her at all?" "Because I wanted to see what she was really made of. And now I know." Emma's voice turned cold. "She's planning to claim you're an unfit father. Drinking problem, anger issue, unstable employment. Colin's lawyers are already building a case." The coffee arrived, but I ignored it. "That's all lies." "Doesn't matter. Colin has enough money to make lies sound like truth. And Lisa's military record makes her look like a saint compared to an ex-cop who got laid off and now works retail." I wanted to argue, but she was right. On paper, Lisa looked like the better parent. Army officer, stable income, clean record. I was just a guy who'd lost his job when the town cut the police budget and now managed a hardware store for $12 an hour. "What do you want from me, Emma?" "I want you to fight back, but smart. Not with your fists or your temper, with your brain." "I'm listening." Emma pulled a manila envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. "Lisa's been sloppy. She thinks she's so much smarter than everyone else, but she's made mistakes." I opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and what looked like copies of emails. "Where did you get these?" "Lisa's been staying at my apartment when she's not with Colin. She leaves her laptop open, thinking I'm too stupid to understand what I'm seeing." Emma smiled, and for the first time, I could see the family resemblance to Lisa. The same calculating intelligence, the same ability to plan 3 moves ahead. The photographs showed Lisa and Colin in various locations, restaurants, hotels, even what looked like a vacation somewhere tropical. The bank statements showed large deposits into an account I'd never heard of. And the emails? The emails were between Lisa and a lawyer named Patricia Vance, discussing strategy for a custody battle. "She's been planning this for months," I said, reading through the correspondence. 6 months, actually, ever since she met Colin at some military contractor conference. I found an email dated 3 weeks ago that made my blood run cold. Lisa was asking about the possibility of relocating to another state with Danny after the divorce, to start fresh. The lawyer's response discussed the legal requirements for parental relocation and suggested building a case that I was an unfit father. "She wants to take him to California," I said. "Colin's company has offices there. They're planning to move after the divorce is final." I closed the folder, my mind racing. "Emma, why are you really doing this? What's in it for you?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the parking lot. Lisa always got everything. The good grades, the scholarships, the career, the husband, the kid. Even after my accident, when I needed her most, she made it clear that helping me was a burden. So this is revenge? This is justice. Lisa thinks she can use people and throw them away when she's done with them. She's wrong. I studied Emma's face, trying to read her motivations. She was giving me ammunition to fight her sister, but I didn't trust her completely. People who betrayed their own family once could do it again. "What's your plan?" I asked. "Lisa's coming home tomorrow night to get more clothes and some personal items. She thinks you'll be at work. You usually work late on Thursdays." "How does she know my schedule?" "She's been watching you, Jack, making notes about your routines, your habits, anything that might be useful in court." The idea of Lisa spying on me, documenting my life to use against me, made me sick. But it also made me angry, and anger was something I could use. "She'll be at the house tomorrow night, around 8 o'clock. She's planning to tell you about the divorce then. She'll have papers with her, and she'll try to make it seem like it's all very civilized and mature. And Danny? She'll want to take him for the weekend, to help him adjust to the new situation." Emma made air quotes with her fingers. "But if you let him go, Jack, you might not get him back. Colin has a private jet. They could be in California before you even knew they were gone." I felt a chill run down my spine. "You think she'd abduct him?" "I think she'd call it protecting him from an unstable situation. And with Colin's lawyers backing her up, she might get away with it." We sat in silence for a few minutes, both of us lost in thought. Finally, Emma spoke again. "Jack, there's something else. Something you need to know about Colin." "What?" "He's not just rich, he's dangerous. His company has been involved in some questionable overseas operations. There are rumors about bribes, intimidation, worse things. If you go up against him directly, you could get hurt." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. Colin Reeve is not the kind of man who loses gracefully. If he wants Lisa and Danny, he'll do whatever it takes to get them." I thought about the man I'd seen in the photographs, tall, handsome, confident. He looked like someone who'd never been denied anything he wanted. "So, what do you suggest?" Emma leaned forward again, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to be smarter than they are. Document everything. Get evidence of the affair, the money, the plans to relocate. Build your own case. And then you make sure that when this goes to court, you're not the only one with secrets to hide." After Emma left, I sat in the diner for another hour, thinking through everything she'd told me. I didn't trust her completely, but the documents she'd given me were real. Lisa was planning to divorce me, take Danny, and disappear to California with her rich boyfriend. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I could play it safe, hire a lawyer, and hope for the best in court. But Emma was right, and Colin had resources I couldn't match. He could afford the best lawyers, the best private investigators, the best everything. Or I could fight dirty, use the information Emma had given me, do some digging of my own, and make sure that Lisa and Colin understood exactly what they were up against. I thought about Danny, about the way he'd looked at me when he asked if we were getting divorced. I thought about 15 years of marriage, of promises made and apparently broken. I thought about working 60-hour weeks to pay for a house that Lisa was planning to take away from me. By the time I left the diner, I had made my decision. If Lisa wanted to play games, I'd show her how the game was really played. But I was going to play to win. I drove straight to Red's office. "I need your help," I told him, "and it's going to get complicated." Red looked at me over his coffee cup, taking in my expression, the set of my shoulders, the tone of my voice. "How complicated are we talking?" "The kind where we might end up in jail if we're not careful." Red grinned. "Now you're speaking my language. What do you need?" Red and I spent the next 2 hours planning what he called an information gathering operation, and what I called making sure my wife and her boyfriend regret the day they decided to screw with me. "First rule," Red said, spreading papers across his desk, "we do everything legal. Barely legal, maybe, but legal. You're going to be in a custody fight, and you can't afford to give them ammunition." "What about what Emma gave me? The emails, the bank statements?" "That's trickier. Technically, if Lisa left her laptop open in Emma's apartment, and Emma happened to see what was on the screen, that's not illegal. But using it in court might be complicated." Red pulled out a digital camera and a small recording device. "What we need is evidence that you gathered yourself. Lisa's coming to the house tomorrow night, right?" "That's what Emma said." "Good. You're going to record that conversation, everything she says about the divorce, about taking Danny, about her plans. In this state, you only need one party consent for recording, and it's your house." I picked up the recording device. It was smaller than a pack of cigarettes. "Where do I put it?" "Kitchen table, under the fruit bowl. She'll probably want to sit down for the big conversation, make it seem civilized. You control where that happens." What about Colin? Emma said Lisa's been watching me, documenting my routines. Maybe he's involved in that too. Red nodded. I've been thinking about that. A guy like Colin doesn't do his own dirty work. He's probably hired someone to keep tabs on you. A private investigator? Or just some local punk with a camera? Either way, we can use that. Red pulled out a map of my neighborhood. Tomorrow, you're going to change your routine. Leave work early, but don't go straight home. Go to Murphy's Tavern, have a couple of beers where people can see you. Why? Because when Lisa's lawyer tries to paint you as an unstable drunk, you want witnesses who can say you had 2 beers, paid your tab, and left like a responsible adult. Establish the pattern now. It was a good plan, but I could see the flaws. Red, what if she doesn't show up? What if Emma was lying? Then we'll know Emma's playing her own game, and we'll adjust accordingly. But my gut says she was telling the truth. Lisa's going to come home tomorrow night, and she's going to try to blindside you with divorce papers and a custody arrangement that screws you over. And if she tries to take Danny? Red's expression hardened. That's abduction, Jack. If she tries to take him without a court order, we call the police and have her arrested. Even Colin's money can't make abduction charges disappear. That evening, I picked Danny up from school and took him to McDonald's for dinner. It wasn't much, but it was something we could afford, and he seemed happy enough with his Happy Meal and the little toy that came with it. Dad, when is Mom coming home? He asked around a mouthful of chicken nuggets. Soon, buddy. Real soon. Is she going to be different, like from the war? I looked at my son, really looked at him. He was 12, old enough to understand that something was wrong, young enough to still believe that adults could fix anything. Danny, I need to tell you something important. Your mom and I, we're having some problems. Adult problems. It doesn't have anything to do with you, and it doesn't mean we love you any less. His face fell. Are you getting divorced? I don't know yet, maybe, but whatever happens, you're going to be okay. I promise you that. Will I have to choose between you and Mom? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. No, Danny, you'll never have to choose. No matter what happens between your mom and me, we both love you, and we'll both always be your parents. It was a lie, or at least a half-truth. If Lisa succeeded in taking him to California, he'd be choosing whether he wanted to see me at all. But I couldn't tell him that. Not yet. That night, after Danny went to bed, I walked through the house, trying to see it the way Lisa would when she came home tomorrow. The place looked tired, paint peeling in the bathroom, carpet worn thin in the hallway, furniture that had seen better days. It was the home of a family that was just getting by, not the kind of place that could compete with Colin's penthouse. But it was our home. Danny had taken his first steps in the living room. We'd measured his height against the kitchen door frame every birthday. His artwork was still stuck to the refrigerator with magnets. This house contained 15 years of our life together, and Lisa was planning to walk away from all of it. I went to bed early, but I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about the conversation I'd have with Lisa tomorrow night, about the recording device hidden under the fruit bowl, about the choice I was making to fight dirty instead of just letting her go. The next day dragged by. I went to work at the hardware store, but I couldn't concentrate. I kept checking my phone, expecting a call from Emma or Red or Lisa herself. Nothing came. At 4 o'clock, I told my manager I wasn't feeling well and left early. Following Red's plan, I drove to Murphy's Tavern and ordered a beer. The place was nearly empty, just me, the bartender, and 2 old-timers playing chess in the corner. You look like someone stole your dog, the bartender said. His name was Mike, and I'd known him since high school. Something like that. I nursed my beer slowly, making it last. Mike, if anyone asks, I was here from 4 to 6, had 2 beers, and left sober. Can you remember that? Mike gave me a look. You in some kind of trouble, Jack? The legal kind. I need witnesses who can say, I'm not a drunk. Ah, Mike nodded knowingly. Divorce? Looks like it. Well, for what it's worth, you had 2 beers, paid your tab, and left a decent tip. I'll remember that. At 6 o'clock, I drove home and waited. Danny was at a friend's house for a sleepover, which was probably for the best. I activated the recording device and placed it under the fruit bowl on the kitchen table. Then I sat down to wait. Lisa arrived at exactly 8 o'clock, just like Emma had predicted. I heard her key in the front door, heard her footsteps in the hallway. When she appeared in the kitchen doorway, I was struck again by how different she looked. The expensive clothes, the new hairstyle, the confidence that came from having options. Hello, Jack. Lisa, I gestured to the chair across from me. Have a seat. We need to talk. She sat down, placing a manila envelope on the table between us. I suppose Emma told you I was coming? She mentioned it. Jack, I want you to know that I never intended for things to happen this way. But we can't keep pretending that our marriage is working. So, you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it? Her composure slipped for just a moment. It's not that simple. Sure it is. You met Colin, you decided you wanted a different life, and you started planning your exit strategy. How long has it been going on, Lisa? That's not important now. It's important to me. She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her calculating how much to admit. 6 months. 6 months. I let that sink in. So all those times you said you were working late, all those weekend training exercises, and all those times you said you loved me, you were lying. I wasn't lying about loving you. But Jack, we're different people than we were when we got married. We want different things. What do you want? I want a life where I don't have to worry about money all the time, where I can travel, experience things, be with someone who understands my ambitions. Someone like Colin. Yes, someone like Colin. I leaned back in my chair, trying to look defeated. So what happens now? Lisa opened the manila envelope and pulled out a thick stack of papers. I've filed for divorce. These are the papers. I'm also filing for primary custody of Danny. On what grounds? Jack, be realistic. I have a stable career, a good income, and I can provide Danny with opportunities you can't. This doesn't have to be a fight, and we can work out a reasonable visitation schedule. Visitation? The word tasted bitter. You mean I get to see my son every other weekend? We can discuss the details with the lawyers. I picked up the divorce papers, pretending to read them. And if I fight this? Lisa's mask slipped again, and for a moment I saw something cold and calculating in her eyes. Then it gets ugly. Jack, you're not in a position to fight me on this. You lost your job, you're barely making ends meet, and you have a history of anger issues. What anger issues? The complaints filed against you when you were a police officer. The drinking. The fact that you've been unstable since you lost your job. I set the papers down carefully. You've been documenting all of this, haven't you? Building a case? I've been protecting my son's interests. Your son? He's my son too, Lisa. Not if you're an unfit father. There it was. The threat Emma had warned me about. Lisa was going to paint me as unstable, dangerous, unfit to raise my own child. And Colin, where does he fit into all this? Colin and I are planning to be married after the divorce is final. He's willing to provide for Danny, give him opportunities in California. Lisa went very still. How did you know about that? Lucky guess. You're planning to take Danny and disappear to the West Coast, aren't you? I'm planning to give Danny the best life possible. Without his father, Jack, you're not thinking clearly. This is what's best for everyone. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the street. Lisa, do you remember when Danny was born? How scared we were? How we promised each other we'd always put him first? That's exactly what I'm doing. No, you're putting yourself first. You're putting Colin first. You're putting money first. I turned back to face her. But you're not putting Danny first. That's not true. Really? Because Danny asked me yesterday if he was going to have to choose between his parents. A 12-year-old shouldn't have to worry about that. For the first time since she'd arrived, Lisa looked uncertain. I never wanted to hurt Danny. Then don't. We can get divorced, Lisa. We can split up our assets, go our separate ways. But don't take my son away from me. Jack, you have to understand. No, you have to understand. I sat back down, leaning forward across the table. I know about the affair. I know about the money Colin's been spending on you. I know about the lawyers and the private investigators and the plan to relocate to California. Lisa's face went white. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself. And my son. Jack, if you try to fight me on this, I will destroy you. Colin has resources you can't imagine. We'll bury you in legal fees, drag your name through the mud, and make sure everyone in this town knows what kind of man you really are. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Is that a threat, Lisa? It's a promise. Good. Because I want to make sure I understand the rules before we start playing. Lisa stood up, gathering the papers. Sign the divorce agreement, Jack. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Or what? Or you'll lose everything. Your son, your house, your reputation, everything. After she left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the fruit bowl that concealed the recording device. I'd gotten everything I needed. Lisa admitting to the affair, threatening to take Danny to California, promising to destroy me if I fought back. But more than that, I'd seen who she really was now. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who was willing to use our son as a weapon to get what she wanted. I called Red. "How did it go?" he asked. "I got it all. The affair, the threats, the plan to relocate, everything." "Good. Now the real work begins." "Red, she's not going to back down. She meant what she said about destroying me. Then we'll have to destroy her first. Legally, of course." "Of course." But as I hung up the phone, I was already thinking beyond legal remedies. Lisa and Colin thought they could use money and influence to take my son away from me. They thought I was just some small-town loser who would roll over and accept whatever they decided to do to me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the county courthouse. If Lisa wanted to play legal hardball, I needed to understand the rules of the game. I spent 3 hours in the law library reading about custody cases, parental relocation, and the factors judges considered when determining the best interests of a child. What I learned wasn't encouraging. Lisa was right about having advantages: stable military career, higher income, clean record. But she'd made mistakes too, and those mistakes were going to cost her. From the courthouse, I drove to the office of Patricia Vance, the lawyer Lisa had been emailing with. The building was downtown, expensive looking, the kind of place that charged by the hour for everything, including phone calls. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. At noon, Lisa's BMW pulled up to the curb. She got out, fed the parking meter, and walked into the building like she owned it. 45 minutes later, she came back out. But this time, she wasn't alone. Colin was with her, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. They stood on the sidewalk talking, their body language tense, urgent. I took photos with the camera Red had given me. Lisa and Colin outside her lawyer's office. Lisa and Colin getting into his BMW together. Lisa and Colin driving away in the middle of a weekday when she was supposed to be on military leave. Then I followed them. They drove to Colin's penthouse, parked in the underground garage, and disappeared inside. I found a spot across the street where I could watch the building and settled in to wait. 2 hours later, they came back out. This time, Lisa was carrying a suitcase. I followed them to a travel agency on Main Street. Through the window, I could see them at a desk with an agent, looking at brochures, pointing at maps, planning their escape to California, no doubt. When they came out, Colin was carrying a folder full of papers. Airline tickets, probably. Hotel reservations, maybe even apartment listings. I took more photos. That evening, I picked Danny up from his friend's house and took him home. He was quiet during dinner, picking at his food, clearly sensing the tension that had settled over our house like a fog. "Dad, is Mom coming home tonight?" "I don't think so, buddy." "Is she ever coming home?" I set down my fork and looked at my son. "Danny, your mom and I are getting divorced. That means we won't be married anymore. And we won't live in the same house." His face crumpled. "It's my fault, isn't it? I did something wrong." "No." I moved around the table and pulled him into a hug. "Danny, listen to me. This has nothing to do with you, nothing. Your mom and I have problems that started long before you were old enough to understand, and they're not your fault. But where will I live? Who will I live with? We're still figuring that out, but no matter what happens, you're going to be loved and taken care of. I promise you that." That night after Danny went to bed, I called Red and told him what I'd observed. "They're moving fast," he said, "probably trying to get everything in place before you can mount a defense." "How long do I have?" "Hard to say. If they're planning to relocate, they'll need court approval. That takes time, unless they're planning to just disappear." "You think they'd do that? A guy with Colin's resources, a private jet, offshore accounts, connections in foreign countries? Yeah, I think they might try it." I felt a chill run down my spine. What can I do to stop them? We need to move faster than they do. I've got a friend who's a family law attorney, Maureen O'Malley. She's tough, smart, and she doesn't like bullies. Can you afford a lawyer? I thought about my savings account, which had about $3,000 in it. For a while. Good, I'll set up a meeting for tomorrow. In the meantime, I want you to start documenting everything. Every conversation with Lisa, every time you see her with Colin, every interaction with Danny. Build a record that shows you're the stable parent. Red, there's something else. I think they might try to take Danny this weekend. Lisa mentioned something about helping him adjust to the new situation. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. You keep Danny close, and if Lisa shows up demanding to take him, you call me immediately. After I hung up, I walked through the house, checking locks, closing curtains. I felt like I was under siege, which I suppose I was. Lisa and Colin had money, lawyers, and a plan. All I had was determination and a growing sense that I was fighting for my life. But sometimes, that's enough. The next morning, I met Maureen O'Malley at her office on State Street. She was a small woman in her 50s, with steel gray hair and the kind of handshake that let you know she meant business. "Red tells me you're in a custody fight with a wife who has money and connections," she said without preamble. "That's about the size of it." I handed her the folder of evidence I'd compiled. The recording of my conversation with Lisa, the photos of her with Colin, the emails Emma had given me, the financial records showing Colin's payments for Lisa's expenses. Maureen reviewed everything carefully, making notes, asking pointed questions. When she was finished, she leaned back in her chair and gave me a hard look. "Jack, I'm going to be straight with you. Your wife has advantages in this case. Military record, higher income, and from what I can see, she's been planning this for months. But she's also made some serious mistakes. Such as the affair, for one thing. Infidelity might not be grounds for divorce in this state anymore, but it's still relevant in custody cases. Judges don't like it when one parent breaks up the family for another relationship. What about the plan to relocate? That's where we can really hurt her. Courts are very reluctant to allow a parent to move a child far away from the other parent without compelling reasons. And my new boyfriend lives in California isn't a compelling reason." Maureen opened a legal pad and started writing. "Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm filing an emergency motion to prevent Lisa from taking Danny out of state without court approval. That'll stop any plans they have to disappear. Can you do that? Already working on it. Second, we're going to demand a custody evaluation. That's a court-appointed psychologist who interviews both parents, observes them with the child, and makes recommendations to the judge. What if the evaluator sides with Lisa? That's where your evidence comes in. We're going to show that Lisa has been deceptive, manipulative, and willing to put her own interests ahead of Danny's. We're going to paint Colin as an outsider trying to buy his way into a family." I felt a spark of hope for the first time in days. What do I need to do? Be the best father you can be. Document everything. Keep records of every interaction with Danny, every conversation with Lisa, every time you see her with Colin. And Jack? Yeah? Don't do anything stupid. Don't confront Colin directly. Don't make threats. Don't give them ammunition to use against you. We're going to win this case with facts and law, not with drama. I left Maureen's office feeling better than I had in weeks. For the first time, I had a plan that didn't involve just reacting to whatever Lisa and Colin threw at me. But the feeling didn't last long. When I got home, there was a black BMW parked in my driveway. Colin was sitting on my front porch wearing jeans and a casual shirt, looking for all the world like he belonged there. When he saw me, he stood up and smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Jack, right? I'm Colin Reeve. I think we need to talk." I parked behind his car, blocking him in, and got out slowly. "Get off my property." Now, that's not very neighborly. I just want to have a conversation, man to man. "We have nothing to talk about." Colin's smile widened. "I think we do. See, Lisa's told me a lot about you, about your drinking, your anger issues, your financial problems. I'm concerned about Danny's welfare." I felt my hands clench into fists, but I remembered Maureen's warning about not giving them ammunition. "My son is none of your business." Actually, he is. You see, Lisa and I are planning to be married. That makes Danny my stepson. I have a responsibility to look out for his interests. "You have a responsibility to stay the hell away from my family," Colin laughed. "Your family?" "Jack, look around. Lisa's moved out. She's filing for divorce. She's planning a new life with me. The only question is whether you're going to make this easy or hard." "Hard," I said without hesitation. "That's too bad, because I was hoping we could work something out. I'm a reasonable man, Jack. I understand that you love Danny, that you want what's best for him. I'm prepared to be generous." "Generous how?" Colin reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. $50,000, cash. Sign the custody papers, don't contest the divorce, and this is yours. I stared at the envelope. $50,000 was more money than I'd ever seen at one time. It would pay off my debts, give me a fresh start, maybe even let me move somewhere new and begin again. And if I don't take it, then we do this the hard way. My lawyers against your lawyer. My resources against your savings account. My reputation against your record. Colin's smile turned cold. Guess who wins that fight? I took the envelope, opened it, and looked at the cash inside. Then I tore it in half and let the pieces fall to the ground. Get off my property, I said quietly, and don't come back. Colin's mask slipped, and for a moment I saw the real man underneath, arrogant, entitled, used to getting his way through money and intimidation. You're making a mistake, Jack, a big one. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Colin got in his BMW and backed out of my driveway. But before he left, he rolled down his window and called out, You can't win this, Jack. I always get what I want. After he drove away, I stood in my driveway looking at the torn bills scattered on the ground. $50,000, more money than I'd make in 2 years at the hardware store. But some things weren't for sale. I called Red and told him about Colin's visit. Son of a witch actually tried to bribe you? Red sounded impressed despite himself. 50 grand in cash. That's a felony, Jack, attempting to interfere with a custody proceeding. Can we prove it? Not without witnesses or a recording. But it tells us something important. They're scared. People who are confident in their legal position don't try to buy off the opposition. That night, I tucked Danny into bed and sat with him for a while, watching him sleep. He looked so young, so innocent, completely unaware that his world was being torn apart by adults who were supposed to protect him. I made a promise to him then, silently, in the darkness of his bedroom. Whatever it took, however far I had to go, I wasn't going to let Lisa and Colin take him away from me. The war had begun, and I intended to win it. 3 days later, Maureen called with news that changed everything. Jack, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is that my emergency motion was granted. Lisa can't take Danny out of state without court approval. And the bad news? She's not planning to wait for court approval. My sources tell me she's booked on a flight to Los Angeles tomorrow morning. Private jet, departing from the county airport at 8 a.m. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She's going to run. Looks like it, and Jack, there's more. The flight manifest shows 3 passengers, Lisa, Colin, and 1 minor child. Danny, they were planning to abduct my son. What can I do? Legally? Not much until they actually try to take him. But Jack, if they get him on that plane, it could be months or years before we get him back. Colin has money, connections, and no conscience. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the wall, trying to think. Lisa would come for Danny tonight, probably with some story about a special weekend trip or surprise vacation. Danny, trusting and eager to please his mother, would go willingly, and I'd never see him again, unless I stopped them. I called Red. I need your help, I said, and it's going to be risky. How risky? The kind where we might end up in jail. I'm listening. I outlined my plan. It was desperate, probably illegal, and almost certainly stupid, but it was the only chance I had. Jack, that's insane. Do you have a better idea? Red was quiet for a long moment. No, but if we do this, we do it right. No mistakes, no loose ends, no evidence left behind. Are you in? I'm in, but Jack, if this goes wrong, it won't go wrong. It can't. That evening, I picked Danny up from school and took him to McDonald's for dinner, then to a movie, then for ice cream. I was stretching out the time, keeping him with me as long as possible, dreading the moment when we'd have to go home. Dad, this has been the best day ever, Danny said as we walked back to the car. But why are we doing all this fun stuff? Can't a father just want to spend time with his son? Yeah, but you seem sad. Are you okay? I knelt down so I was at his eye level. Danny, I need you to promise me something. If anyone, and I mean anyone, tries to take you somewhere tonight, you call me immediately, okay? Even Mom? Especially Mom. Danny's face scrunched up in confusion. Dad, you're scaring me. I don't mean to scare you, buddy. I just need you to be careful. Can you promise me that? I promise. We drove home in comfortable silence, Danny playing games on his phone, me trying not to think about what was going to happen in the next few hours. At 9 o'clock, Lisa's BMW pulled into the driveway. I watched from the living room window as she got out of the car. She was alone, which was smart. Colin's presence would have put Danny on guard. The doorbell rang. Danny, go to your room and close the door, I said. But Mom's here. Go to your room, now. Something in my voice must have convinced him. He ran upstairs and I heard his bedroom door close. I opened the front door. Lisa was standing on the porch, wearing a casual outfit and a nervous smile. Hello, Jack, I came to see Danny. It's 9 o'clock on a school night. I know it's late, but I wanted to surprise him. I thought maybe he could come stay with me this weekend, to help him adjust to the new situation. What new situation would that be? Jack, we'd talked about this. The divorce, the custody arrangement. I think it would be good for Danny to spend some time with me. Where were you planning to take him? Just a hotel. Maybe do some shopping, see a movie. Mother-son bonding time. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Lisa, I know about the flight tomorrow morning. Her face went white. What flight? The private jet to Los Angeles. 8 a.m. departure. 3 passengers. Lisa's composure cracked. Jack, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're planning to abduct my son. I'm not abducting anyone. I'm protecting Danny from an unstable situation. By taking him 3,000 miles away from his father? By giving him a chance at a better life. Jack, be reasonable. Colin can provide for Danny in ways you never could. Private schools, college, opportunities. What Danny needs is his father. What Danny needs is stability. And you can't provide that. I felt my anger rising, but I kept my voice level. Lisa, if you try to take Danny tonight, I'll call the police. You'll be arrested for abduction, and you'll lose any chance of getting custody. You can't stop me from seeing my own son. I can stop you from taking him to California. Lisa stepped closer, and I could see the desperation in her eyes. Jack, please. I'm begging you. Let me take Danny for the weekend. I promise I'll bring him back. Your promises don't mean much anymore. I'll pay you. Colin and I will give you whatever you want. Money, a house, a new car. Just let us have Danny. Danny's not for sale. Lisa's mask finally slipped completely. You fool! You're going to ruin everything. Danny could have had a real future, and you're going to keep him trapped in this pathetic little life because you're too selfish to let him go. I'm not the one being selfish here. Yes, you are. You're a loser, Jack. You've always been a loser. You lost your job, you're barely making ends meet, and now you're going to drag Danny down with you because you can't stand the idea of someone else giving him what you can't. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Lisa, there's something you should know. I've been recording our conversations. She went very still. What? Every conversation we've had since you came home. The threats, the bribes, the plan to relocate to California, all of it recorded, all of it admissible in court. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. One-party consent state, remember? And this is my house. Lisa's face cycled through several emotions. Shock, anger, fear, and finally, a cold calculation that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. She was smart, tough, and when cornered, dangerous. Jack, if you use those recordings, I'll destroy you. Colin has resources you can't imagine. We'll bury you in legal fees, ruin your reputation, make sure you never see Danny again. You can try. I won't just try. I'll succeed. Lisa's voice turned venomous. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what you're up against. Colin doesn't just have money. He has connections. Politicians, judges, law enforcement. One phone call, and your life becomes a living hell. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Sign the custody papers, Jack. Take Colin's money and disappear. It's the only way this ends well for you. I opened the front door. Good night, Lisa. This isn't over. Yes, it is. After she drove away, I went upstairs to check on Danny. He was lying in bed, pretending to be asleep, but I could tell he'd been crying. It's okay, buddy, I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. Everything's going to be okay. I heard you and Mom fighting. I know, I'm sorry you had to hear that. Dad, is Mom really going to take me away? I was quiet for a long moment, trying to figure out how to answer that question honestly without terrifying him. Your mom wants you to come live with her and Colin in California, but I'm not going to let that happen. You belong here with me. What if she tries to make me go? Then I'll stop her. Promise? I promise. But as I sat there in the darkness, listening to my son's breathing gradually slow as he fell asleep, I wondered if it was a promise I could keep. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the county airport. Red was waiting for me in the parking lot, along with 2 other men I didn't recognize. Friends of mine, Red explained. They owe me some favors. At 7:30, Colin's BMW pulled up to the private aviation terminal. Lisa got out of the passenger seat, followed by Colin. They walked into the building, moving with the confidence of people who were used to getting their way. But Danny wasn't with them. Where's the kid? One of Red's friends asked. Still at home, I hope. My phone rang. The caller ID showed my home number. Dad? Danny's voice was scared, breathless. There's a man at the door. He says Mom sent him to pick me up. Danny, listen to me very carefully. Do not open that door. Do not go with that man. Lock yourself in your room and wait for me to get home. Dad, I'm scared. I know, buddy. I'm on my way. I hung up and turned to Red. They sent someone to grab Danny. Go. We'll handle things here. I drove home faster than I'd ever driven in my life, running red lights, taking corners on two wheels, praying I wouldn't be too late. When I turned onto Maple Street, I saw a black SUV parked in front of my house. A large man in a suit was standing on my porch, talking on his phone. I parked behind the SUV, blocking it in, and got out of my car. Can I help you? I called out. The man turned around. He was big, professional looking, the kind of guy who probably had military or law enforcement training. You must be Jack. I'm here to pick up Danny. His mother sent me. Do you have any identification? The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a wallet. Private security. Mrs. Slater hired me to transport Danny to the airport. Mrs. Slater doesn't have the authority to do that. Sir, I'm just doing my job. The boy's mother wants to see him. And I'm telling you that you're not taking my son anywhere. The man's hand moved closer to his jacket, and I realized he might be armed. Sir, I don't want any trouble, but I have my orders. Your orders don't mean crap. This is my house. That's my son, and you're trespassing. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man trying to abduct my son. The security guard's eyes widened. Sir, hang up the phone. My name is Jack Slater. I'm at 412 Maple Street, and there's a man here trying to take my 12-year-old son. Sir, I'm warning you. Are you threatening me? Because I've got 911 on the line, and they're recording this conversation. The security guard looked at his phone, then at me, then at the police sirens that were growing louder in the distance. This isn't over, he said, walking quickly to his SUV. Yeah, it is, I replied. Two police cars arrived just as the SUV was pulling away. I gave the officers a statement, showed them the court order preventing Lisa from taking Danny out of state, and explained about the attempted abduction. Where's your son now? One of the officers asked. Upstairs, locked in his room. Can we talk to him? I called Danny down, and he told the officers about the man who'd tried to convince him to come to the door, about how scared he'd been, about how he'd called me for help. Mr. Slater, the officer said, we're going to file a report about this incident. If anyone else tries to take your son without your permission, call us immediately. After the police left, I sat Danny down and tried to explain what had happened. Mom really tried to take me away, he asked. She thought she was doing what was best for you, but she was wrong. What happens now? Now we go to court and a judge decides where you're going to live. What if the judge says I have to live with Mom? I looked at my son, really looked at him. He was scared, confused, caught in the middle of an adult war that he didn't understand. But he was also brave, smart, and stronger than either Lisa or I had given him credit for. Danny, no matter what happens, I want you to know that I love you. And I'm going to fight for you with everything I have. I love you too, Dad. That afternoon, Maureen called with an update. Jack, Lisa, and Colin missed their flight this morning. My sources tell me they're still in town, probably regrouping and planning their next move. What about the attempted abduction? That's going to help us enormously in court. Judges don't like it when one parent tries to circumvent the legal process. When do we go to court? Emergency hearing tomorrow morning. Lisa's lawyer is going to argue that you're interfering with her parental rights. We're going to argue that she's trying to abduct Danny. What are our chances? Better than they were yesterday. Jack, I think we might actually win this thing. That night, I tucked Danny into bed and sat with him until he fell asleep. Tomorrow, a judge would decide our future. But tonight, my son was safe at home where he belonged. And that was enough. The next morning, the courthouse was packed. Lisa and Colin sat on one side with their expensive lawyers. Danny and I sat on the other side with Maureen. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Lisa's lawyer painted me as an unstable, vindictive ex-husband who was using Danny as a weapon. Maureen painted Lisa as a manipulative adulteress who was willing to abduct her own son to get what she wanted. The judge listened to both sides, reviewed the evidence, and asked Danny to speak privately in his chambers. When they came back out, the judge rendered his decision. In the matter of custody of Daniel Slater, This court finds that the child's best interests are served by remaining in the primary custody of his father, Jack Slater. The mother, Lisa Slater, is granted supervised visitation rights to be exercised locally and subject to court approval. Lisa's face crumpled. Colin looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Furthermore, the judge continued, this court is disturbed by evidence of an attempted parental abduction. Mrs. Slater, you are hereby ordered to surrender your passport and are prohibited from taking the minor child outside the county without court approval. It was over. I'd won. Outside the courthouse, Colin approached me one last time. This isn't finished, Jack. I don't give up easily. Yeah, it is finished. And Colin, if you ever come near my son again, I'll eliminate you. Colin's face went white. Are you threatening me? I'm making you a promise. Stay away from my family. 2 weeks later, Lisa and Colin left town. I heard they moved to California where Colin's company had offices. I never saw either of them again. Danny and I stayed in the house on Maple Street. I kept working at the hardware store, and he kept going to school, playing baseball, and being a normal kid. We had our struggles, our bad days, our moments when we both missed the way things used to be. But we had each other. And in the end, that was all that mattered. 6 months after the custody hearing, Danny asked me if I was happy. Yeah, buddy, I said. I'm happy, are you? Yeah, Dad. What? I'm glad I get to live with you. Me too, kiddo, me too. As I watched my son run off to play with his friends, I thought about everything that had happened. The lies, the betrayal, the fight for custody. It had been the worst time of my life, but also in some ways the best. Because it had shown me what I was really made of. When everything was on the line, when the people I'd trusted most in the world had turned against me, I'd found a way to fight back. I'd found a way to win, and I'd kept my promise to my son. Some battles are worth fighting, no matter what the cost. Some things are worth more than money, more than comfort, more than an easy life. Family is worth fighting for. Love is worth fighting for. And sometimes when you're backed into a corner with nowhere to run, you discover that you're stronger than you ever imagined. Lisa had been wrong about one thing. I wasn't a loser. I was a father. And there's nothing more dangerous than a father protecting his child.